Chapter 1. The Adventure of Tolya Kluckvin. Get ready. Have you ever been caught in an embarrassing situation? How did you deal with it? Would you like to read the story of two boys who had to go through an embarrassing situation? This is an excerpt from the book The Adventures of Tolya Kluckvin by a very famous Russian author, Nikolai Nosov. In this extract, Tolya and his friend Misha are in the countryside at Aunt Natasha's house. Let's read and find out what happens.
Misha and I moved to Aunt Natasha's house. She had a dog named Dianka. The very next day, Dianka had 6 puppies. Aunt Natasha was very upset when she saw how many puppies there were. We promised we would find homes for them when they got a little bigger. Soon, the puppies were running along the yard, and we spent our time playing with them. Aunt Natasha reminded us about finding homes for them. We got busy doing this and finally managed to give away 5 puppies. Now, only 1 puppy was left. He had a lovely expression and big eyes that always looked surprised. We named the puppy Paul. Misha couldn't part with him. He wrote a letter to his mother.
Adventure, an activity that involves
It read, "Dear Mother, I hope you will let me keep a very nice puppy. He is very beautiful, brown all over, and his one ear is black. We call him Paul. I will do anything you say if you let me keep him. And I will train him so that he will grow up to be a very intelligent dog. Your loving son, Misha." Misha said he'd buy a book on dogs and would train Paul according to the book. Several days passed, but there was still no reply from Misha's mother. There was a letter from her, but she did not mention Paul. We decided to leave for home the next day. Misha said he would take Paul home, even though he didn't have permission to, because it wasn't his fault. His mother's other letter hadn't arrived yet.
How will you take Pal in the train? Aunt Natasha asked. You're not allowed to take a dog in a train if you don't have a leash and muzzle for it. The conductor will fine you if he sees Pal.
Well, we'll put him in a suitcase and no one will see him. We put all our things in Misha's knapsack and made some holes in my suitcase with a big nail so that Paul could have enough fresh air. We put a chunk of bread in case he got hungry. Then we put Paul in the suitcase and Aunt Natasha came to see us off. We found seats next to an old woman who was dozing.
Leash, a piece of leather fastened to a dog's collar. Muzzle, a cover to put over a dog's mouth to stop it from biting people. Knapsack, a bag made of sturdy material. Junk, a big piece. Dozing, sleeping.
There was no one else nearby. Misha slid the suitcase under the seat. All was well till we came to the next stop. Some more passengers got on. A man, woman, and girl came and sat in our compartment. Suddenly, a loud scratching came from under the bench. "That's Paul," Misha whispered. "What if he starts barking?" Paul was scratching away, as if he was trying to tunnel out of the suitcase.
Help! It's a mouse!
Shrieked the girl and pulled her legs up under her.
Don't be silly, Lena,
Her mother said.
How could a mouse get into a train?
At this, Misha began to cough loudly and move the suitcase about with the tip of his shoe. Paul was silent for a few moments and then began to whine. Everyone exchanged surprised looks. Just then, someone in the next coupe began to play an accordion, and the sound of the music drowned out Paul's whining. But a few moments later, the music ended. "Let's recite poetry in loud voices," said Misha. "All right, you start," said I. There was a tiny yelp under the seat. Misha cleared his throat and began reciting. "Green the grassy meadow, bright the shining sun. Gay the springtime swallow, good cheer to everyone." There was laughter behind us. Someone said, "It's nearly autumn, and here we are welcoming the spring." Lena giggled and said,
What funny boys! First they scratch like mice, then they recite poems.
Misha paid no attention to anyone. As soon as he finished the poem about spring, he began another, all the time tapping his foot. "Fresh and green my garden looks, with lilac fragrance in the air, with its cool and shady nooks, with cherry trees and linder fair."
Shrieked, made a loud sound due to fear. Whine, sound made by a dog when it is sad. Coupe, a railway carriage. Accordion, a portable wind instrument with a small keyboard. Ah, summer at last!
Someone else remarked merrily. Still, Misha ignored them. He was now on to winter. "This winter the rejoicing peasant is seen again upon the sleigh. His pony also finds it pleasant to trot along the snow-clad way." Then things took a sudden turn and winter was followed by autumn. "What a gloomy picture! Clouds and nothing more." At this, Paul began to whine loudly. Misha shouted, "Why so early autumn with your chilly blight?" The old woman who had slept through all this woke up nodding and said,
Yes, dear, you are right. It's an early autumn this year.
She began to pat Misha's head. Misha kicked me, signaling me to continue. But all the poems I had ever known escaped me just then. All I could think of were the words of a song. A moment later, I was shouting the words out just as if this was another poem. Lena's father looked thunderstruck. "Oh no," he moaned, "another actor." Meanwhile, I went through the song twice. When I stopped, Misha came to my rescue. He began with great emphasis. "Serene is the Ukrainian night. The sky is clear. The stars are shining." More passengers got on at the next stop. Well, one of them said, "There's a poetry recital on here."
Sleigh, a wheelless cart used to move on snow. Thunderstruck, astonished.
Meanwhile, Misha had reached the end of his poem. He kicked me again, as before. I couldn't seem to think of anything except a song, which I started reciting. "All the world around I traveled. Nowhere could I find my love." Lena laughed and said,
All he knows is songs.
It's not my fault. He recited all the poems I know, I said. The train was approaching the city. The passengers took down their bags. A noisy crowd filled the aisle. We grabbed our knapsack and suitcase and made our way towards the exit. There was not a sound from the suitcase. Isn't something strange? Misha said. See how quiet he is when he can bark, and remember how he yelped when he should have been still. Let's have a look. Maybe he's suffocated. Misha set down the suitcase and opened it. We were dumbfounded. There was no puppy inside. Instead, there were some books and notebooks, a towel, a cake of soap, a pair of horn-rimmed eyeglasses, and a pair of knitting needles. We had got someone else's suitcase. We ran back to the train. It was empty. We ran through each compartment, looking under all seats. Paul was lost.